There are moments in history where knowledge appears to follow a steady, traceable path, a gradual accumulation of ideas, discoveries, and language. We believe that what is written can eventually be read, that what is encoded can be decoded, that meaning, once captured in ink, is never truly lost. This belief forms a quiet foundation beneath all scholarship. But what happens when that foundation begins to fracture? Imagine a book, real, physical, preserved through centuries, written in a script no one can understand, not because it is damaged or incomplete or fragmented, but because it resists comprehension entirely. Every symbol is clear, every page intact, and yet no one, across generations of historians, linguists, and cryptographers, has been able to read a single sentence with certainty. And this is where the contradiction begins. The Voynich Manuscript exists. It is not a rumor. It is not a myth. It sits today in a controlled environment, catalogued, studied, and photographed. And still, its meaning remains sealed, not by time alone, but by something far more unsettling. What if a book could survive for centuries without ever revealing what it says? The manuscript is believed to have been created in the early 15th century, between 1404 and 1438, according to radiocarbon dating of its vellum pages. This places it firmly within the late medieval period, a time of structured knowledge, emerging scientific inquiry, and evolving linguistic systems. Europe was not silent then. It was writing, recording, translating. Latin dominated scholarly work. Regional languages were forming identities. Manuscripts were not mysterious objects. They were tools of communication. And yet, this book does not conform. The Voynich Manuscript consists of around 240 pages, though some are missing. It is written entirely in an unknown script, composed of characters that resemble no known alphabet. The text flows smoothly, left to right, with consistent spacing and apparent structure. There are no corrections. No visible hesitation. Whoever wrote it did so fluently, as though writing in a familiar language. But here is the unsettling part. Despite its fluidity, no one can read it. Not partially. Not approximately. Not even a fragment with agreement. Accompanying the text are illustrations. Detailed, deliberate, and equally perplexing. There are drawings of plants that resemble no known species, diagrams of what appear to be astronomical or astrological systems, and human figures, primarily women, interacting with complex, almost biological structures. Some pages resemble early herbal manuals. Others suggest cosmological mapping, but none align cleanly with known traditions. History does not break easily, but here it bends. The manuscript entered modern awareness in 1912, when a rare book dealer named Wilfred Voynich acquired it from a Jesuit college in Italy. The setting was quiet, almost routine. A collection of old texts, preserved but largely overlooked. There was no immediate indication that this particular volume would defy centuries of understanding. Voynich, however, recognized something unusual. The script was unlike anything he had encountered. The illustrations were intricate but unfamiliar. And as he examined the pages more closely, a realization began to form, not gradually, but with a certain clarity. This was not simply an obscure text. It was something else entirely. Within the manuscript, Voynich discovered a letter tucked among the pages, dated 1665 or 1666. It was written by Johannes Marcus Marci, a scholar from Prague, addressed to the Jesuit polymath Athanasius Kircher. In the letter, Marci mentions that the manuscript had once belonged to Emperor Rudolph II of the Holy Roman Empire, who reportedly purchased it for a significant sum, believing it to be the work of Roger Bacon, a 13th-century English philosopher. But attribution is not understanding. Even in the 17th century, the manuscript was already unreadable. It had already lost its voice. And this is where the mystery deepens, not because of what is unknown, but because of how long it has remained unknown. The physical characteristics of the manuscript offer clarity, but not answers. The vellum pages are of high quality, consistent with medieval production. The ink shows no signs of multiple authors or later editions. The handwriting remains uniform throughout, suggesting a single scribe or a highly coordinated effort. Statistical analysis of the text reveals patterns, repetition, structure, and distribution that resemble natural languages. This is not random, and yet it is not recognizable. Linguists have examined the script extensively. Some have attempted to map it to known languages through substitution ciphers. Others have explored the possibility of constructed languages, artificial systems designed for specific purposes. Computational analysis has identified recurring word patterns, suggesting grammar or syntax. But no translation has held under scrutiny. But here is the contradiction. The manuscript behaves like language, without being language we can access. Even the illustrations resist interpretation. The botanical section includes dozens of plant drawings, each paired with blocks of text. But the plants do not match any known species, either real or extinct. Some appear to be composites, roots from one plant, leaves from another. The astronomical diagrams include circular charts, possibly representing constellations or celestial cycles, but they do not align precisely with known systems. And then there are the figures: small, stylized women, often depicted bathing or interacting with what appear to be tubes, containers, or organic networks. Some scholars have suggested these represent medical or alchemical processes. Others see symbolic or ritualistic imagery. But no interpretation is definitive. And this is where the tension remains. Mainstream scholarship tends to approach the Voynich Manuscript with caution. The prevailing view is that it is a genuine medieval document, written in an unknown or encrypted language, possibly created for a specific, now-lost purpose. Some suggest it could be a form of shorthand or mnemonic system. Others propose that it encodes a known language through an elaborate cipher. There is also the possibility that it represents a constructed language, an attempt to create a system of communication independent of existing linguistic frameworks. Such efforts were not unheard of in intellectual circles of the time. But here is the unsettling part. If it is a cipher, it is one that has resisted every known method of decryption. If it is a language, it is one with no surviving reference point. Alternative interpretations exist, but they remain grounded in scholarly reasoning. Some researchers have proposed that the manuscript may be a form of medical or pharmacological guide, using symbolic representations to obscure sensitive knowledge. Others have explored the idea that it could be a personal notebook, an internal system of thought, never intended for external reading. There is even the suggestion that it could be a deliberate hoax, a meaningless text designed to appear complex. But this theory struggles to explain the statistical properties of the writing, which align more closely with structured language than with random generation. And so the debate continues, not loudly, not dramatically, but persistently, because the manuscript does not demand attention. It simply remains, untranslated, unresolved. There is something profoundly disquieting about a text that cannot be read, not because it is hidden, but because it is present, fully visible, entirely accessible, and yet silent. It challenges an assumption we rarely question, that knowledge, once recorded, is permanent. That meaning, once written, can always be recovered. The Voynich Manuscript suggests otherwise. It suggests that understanding is not guaranteed, that context can vanish, that language can become isolated, even when preserved perfectly. And this is where the reflection begins. We often view history as a continuous thread, a narrative that can be reconstructed through evidence and interpretation. But what if some parts of that thread are not broken, but sealed, not lost, but inaccessible? The manuscript does not offer answers. It does not confirm theories. It does not resolve its own existence. It simply exists, a book that has survived wars, migrations, and centuries of handling, without ever revealing what it says. And perhaps that is the most unsettling aspect of all. Not that it is mysterious, but that it is complete. Every page intact, every word preserved, every symbol clear, and still unreadable. History does not always disappear. Sometimes it remains perfectly visible just beyond the reach of understanding. And the question lingers, quietly, without urgency, without resolution. What else might we have already found, but not yet understood? The silence of the Voynich Manuscript is not empty. It is structured, deliberate, and persistent. It does not feel like absence, it feels like resistance. And this is where the inquiry deepens, not into what the manuscript contains, but into why it continues to withhold itself. By the mid-20th century, the manuscript had passed into the care of scholars who approached it with a different kind of toolset. No longer limited to visual inspection or classical linguistics, researchers began applying statistical analysis to the text. Frequencies of symbols were measured. Patterns of repetition were mapped. Word lengths were catalogued and compared. And the results were unsettling. The distribution of characters within the manuscript mirrors natural language. Certain symbols appear more frequently than others, as expected in any linguistic system. Words tend to follow predictable lengths. Some sequences repeat in ways that suggest grammatical structure. There are even positional patterns. Certain symbols appear more often at the beginnings or ends of words. This is not random, but neither is it readable. And this is where the contradiction sharpens. If the manuscript is a cipher, it is one that has preserved the statistical fingerprint of language while concealing its meaning entirely. If it is a language, it is one that follows linguistic rules without corresponding to any known system. Cryptographers, including some of the most skilled codebreakers of the 20th century, attempted to unlock it. During both World Wars, individuals trained in deciphering complex encrypted messages turned their attention to the Voynich Manuscript. They approached it with discipline, with method, with experience in breaking codes designed to resist interpretation. They failed. Not partially, not temporarily, completely. But here is the unsettling part. Their failure was not due to a lack of effort or expertise. It was due to the manuscript's refusal to behave like any known encrypted system.